Today we're going to learn our last way of solving a quadratic. So before we start, let's just remember, when you graph a quadratic, it makes a parabola. Where the parabola touches the x-axis are the, what are these called? Zeros, solutions, x-intercepts, roots. Am I missing anything? I feel like I am. The answers, there you go. Okay, so I have taught you many different ways to solve quadratics. Let's talk about the ways I've taught you. First way, factor it. So do y'all remember how to factor a trinomial, right? We did the X method. When you factor it, then you can take both of the binomials you make, set them equal to 0, and then those are your answers by solving. Or you can solve in your calculator, yes? Or you can solve by doing the square root method, which is what we learned yesterday. But the square root method only works if the middle term's missing, the bx. And then I think those are the ways I've taught you. Okay, so today we're going to learn the last way, which is called the quadratic formula. So before we start, let's write our quadratic in standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. And then you should always set it equal to 0, unless you're doing the square root method. The quadratic formula you do not have to memorize. It is found on your star chart under quadratic equations right here. Does everybody see it? It's a lot of fun. It's actually really not hard at all. Okay? So we're going to write it down. Why, real quick, I want y'all to look. How many signs do you see right here? 2. A plus and a? Why do you think there's 2 signs? Because when you graph, there are 2 solutions. So that's why you're going to have to do the plus and the minus version of the quadratic equation. So let's write the quadratic equation. To solve for x, you're going to take negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. That's all under the square root. And that is all. The whole thing is divided by 2 times a. It looks complicated because there's a lot of pieces to it. But what do y'all notice in the whole thing? There's a b, an a, and a c. Doesn't that come from your quadratic? So all you're doing is plugging in the a, the b, and the c for this. It's really not complicated, and then you will let your calculator do the work. Make sense? So here's your a, here's your b, here's your c. You're just going to plug those numbers in. Got it? But it has to be set equal to 0 in order for this to work. So let's look at example 1. Is it set equal to 0? So how do I set it equal to 0? I need to move the 15 to the left by, so I have 4x squared plus 7x minus 15 equals 0. The a is 4, the b is 7, and the c is negative 15. Do y'all agree? Yes. All I'm going to do now is set it up to look like this, but instead of the b, the a, the c, I'm going to drop the numbers in. Got it? Okay, so here we go. I have negative b, so the opposite of b. Well, b is 7. So what's the opposite of 7? Negative 7 plus or minus the square root of. And make it real long because you're about to put a bunch of stuff under there. And now we're going to write b squared. Well, what is b? 7. So 7 squared minus 4 times a, which is 4, times c, which is negative 15. And sometimes it's easier to just use the parentheses for those instead of the dots. And all of that is going to be divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 4. Now, you're going to have to put this in your calculator twice. What I suggest using is alpha y equals. Do y'all agree this is a fraction? This whole thing is the numerator and that's the denominator. So pay attention. I'm going to show y'all. Go to alpha y equals option 1. you're going to put in -7 plus, just going to do the first one, the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times 4 times -15 over 2 times 4. That's your first answer. Got it? Now, instead of retyping it in, hit second enter. It just re-put the whole thing in, yes? You can then arrow back and change the plus sign to a minus. Don't put a negative, and that's your second answer. So I'm just teaching y'all, don't waste your time by retyping the whole thing in. So my first answer, it's going to touch at 5/4, which is 1.25. It's 5 and a 4, yes. So my first answer is 5/4. Or if you want to write it as a decimal, 1.25. My second answer is going to be at -3. And I don't care if you leave it as a fraction or a decimal. Either one is fine. Is it hard? No. I actually like this way. And back when I took algebra, our calculator didn't solve them for us. So this was my favorite way to solve them because it works on every single one. Okay? All right, let's try this one. So I have 2x squared plus 7x minus 9 equals 0. Y'all want to try to set it up?
Yes.
Check what you set up before you put it in your calculator. Check it with mine to make sure you set it up correctly. How did we do? Did we set it up okay? Okay, let's do one more on the front together, and then we're going to do one on the back. And then we'll talk about a few more things, and then you'll get your assignment. So which one do y'all want to do?
The second one.
This one?
Yes.
All right, go do this one. Round to the hundreds place if needed. And some of us need to work on our rounding skills. Any questions on that one? You got it? Yes, no? Comments, concerns? Okay, flip to the back. Let's do this one right here. And I want to talk to y'all about it before we do it. So is it set up correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to do negative b. Now everybody look. What is the opposite of b?
1.
Positive 1. So I have 1 plus or minus the square root of. Now this is the part we need to be careful on right here because, excuse me, you have b squared. Well, that's negative 1 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So I went ahead and put it in. I put it in with b squared. Well, b is negative 1, right? Here's the problem. Sometimes the calculator doesn't understand a negative 1 squared. What's negative 1 times negative 1?
1.
Positive 1. You see what I'm saying? So I would just go ahead and put it in as positive because it's going to give you a positive answer no matter what. This is actually the correct answer, 2.25. This is not accurate. So when you go put, if b is negative, when you go put it right here, I would not put in the negative because you know a negative times a negative is a. So go ahead and just figure that out in your head and leave that negative off because it's a positive anyways. Do y'all understand? Okay, so go put it in. And then we're going to put it in with a subtraction sign. Bless you. So the first answer was 2.25 or 9/4, and the second one was negative 2. Yes? Okay, before we get our assignment, on the very back, it just kind of goes over the different ways that I've taught you how to solve a quadratic. The only one that we're not going to learn is completing the square, but we've learned all the other ways. The graphing way is like, I would say the calculator way, and it basically says, so if you have these, which way would you use it? And guys, there's really no wrong answer. The only time you're going to be wrong is if you say the square root method and you can't use it. So like, look at the first one. Which method could you use on this one? You could use the square root, but would you be wrong if you did it the calculator way? No. Okay? What about this one? Calculator or factoring. Yes? What about this one?
The one we just did.
The one we just did? Could you do the quadratic formula on any of these? Yes. If something's missing, what is it? 0. Are y'all with me? So there's no wrong answer to which way you would use it. It's kind of up to you. Now, if you are best at the calculator way, then when you take your EOC, I'm fine with you doing it on all of them. But do you still have to know how to factor? Yes, because they will ask a question just on factoring. Okay, and we're going to go over all of that again. So, but that's just kind of summarizing like which way is best to use. Personally, on this one, I would probably do the square root way. On this one, I would probably, if it was me, I'd probably just put it in my calculator. And then this one, it would just depend if I wanted to do the quadratic formula or the calculator. Honestly, I'm never going to solve them by factoring unless it's required, just because it takes long. Okay. On 1 through 6, there's going to be 3 answers. It wants you to identify the A, the B, and the C. So you'll literally write, the A is 5, the B is 7, the C is 1. That's all it wants. Please don't forget if they have a negative value, you have to include that in your answer. Okay, on 7 through 9, you're going to match it with which one is set up correctly if you were to do the quadratic formula. On 10 through 21, you are going to use the quadratic formula to solve. Okay, if you need to set them up out to the side or on a separate sheet of paper, that's fine. Okay, but you do need to show your work somewhere. You're going to do number 22, A and B, and you don't have to do 23.